thanks for the talk there. I think we used Silk format a lot. I've struggled with CSRF tokens and how you turn those on and off in production versus wherever. But today, I want to talk about Log4php and what that is now. What I've come to realize when preparing for this presentation, demoing logs is not exactly exciting. So be prepared to be riveted. So it's Log4php is a quick. It's a logging package. It's a part of Apache logging services. Let's see here. Which, if you ever heard of Log4j or Log4net, Log4php is another one. There's plenty of other logging solutions. I happen to use this one, and I'll talk about why here. But it's pretty mature. It came out of Apache incubation in 2010. It's extendable, flexible, all that good stuff. The last release came out in May. They're actively working on 2.3. Why would you want to use some kind of logging package? Well, there's reasons up above, but from my standpoint, I work in an environment where there's a large operations group, and they deal with a lot of different programs and a lot of different languages. In particular, we have some in .NET, some in PHP. So for them to have a common configuration file and know how to tweak it and know how to massage it and things like that, it really works well. So there's that, but you can change all your logs and where logs go, what do they do, where they get shipped, all via just configuration. There's a bunch of other stuff, but there's also a log viewer called Apache Chainsaw, which you can leverage. I've not done it myself, but I think people we've worked with have. So why not? Well, there's other logging packages. If error is sufficient for what you're doing or a quick website, use it. There's no reason to get heavy duty. I know Pear has a version. I know there's some Zen framework fans out there. If you've got a website built on Zen framework, use Zen log. But if you want to, take it out and have something completely independent of Zen framework, if you use Zen log, I think you have to use Zen exception and bring in some other classes. Not a big deal. Totally usable, perfectly good comparative. Why also not use it in the current version? There's a bug when rolling files on the NTFS file system. We are filing a patch, and we filed it earlier today, actually. So we're kind of going back and forth a little bit. And then another weird thing is when you log, if there's a PHP notices or PHP warnings, et cetera, that don't go through like your debugger class, those are going to go to whatever the PHP INI setting is. Now, we've actually got a hack that when you boot up the app, it sets the PHP INI to whatever appender you choose to. So again, there's ways of working around that. Just kind of a little goofy. Another possibility is using the set exception handler and some overrides. So, the real nitty-gritty. Some examples. Log4php is an object you has to instantiate. Here I built a quick little class that's a singleton that you just debug and send stuff to it, and then you get the appenders and all of those. Okay. So, I wrote a quick little app. All it does is runs, and it runs this debug class. All it does is, it's a singleton. It gets the logger. It sets the logging level to whatever you choose it to be, and then it logs it. And there's a bunch of fancy stuff that I had to do for demo purposes. Okay, so I'm going to run through a couple examples here. One is a simple appender and what an XML file looks like for the you just want to append to the end of a file, no matter how big it gets or anything like that. The next example I'll go through is a file roller and allowing multiple configurations in the same doc. And then there's also ones that you can log to Mongo, you can log to a database. You can also filter your logs off from this little configuration file. So a Log4php appender, a lot of people don't like XML. Again, I work with large operations groups, so they like XML because it's cross-language and all that stuff. All of these are also in PHP INI format, so all you got to do is load an INI file, and it's basically the same syntactic sugar, whatever floats your boat. I have to use the XML. So what we're looking at is the big thing down here is the root. So the root says at a system-wide level, what is your debug level? And I think there's 5 of them. Let's see here. There is fatal, the system's down, error, hey, pay attention to this, warning, info, and debug. Debug is where I usually, just as a little practice of mine, you want to dump a large object, put it in debug. You want to do something in a loop, put it in info. And other than that, you're talking about fatal errors and warnings and stuff you should really pay attention to. So this level says what you're debugging at, and then the appender is the actual logging mechanism. You can have multiple of these, as we'll see. So it references this logging appender file class, which is a file, which is a class in Log4php. You tell it where you want it to log, what your range of debug levels for this file are, and then the layout that it's in it. So let's see, what's this demo do? It's going to log this and log this again. Again, not terribly exciting. So that should have built. Look at that. Ta-da! It logged. A logging class that doesn't log, you got a problem. The next example, so this is really why we moved to something like this. If you've ever dealt with huge log files, file rolling out of the box is really sweet. You can also go to Mongo and databases and all kinds of stuff, but to be able to set how much you want to log, and after you get over a certain size, just log the rolls for us. I know there's a bunch of Linux stuff out there that does that as well, so this is compatible with Windows. So let's look at these. So what I'm going to do in this example, I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to log at a different log level for a single log, and then I'm going to loop through the rest of these. I don't know, 5,000 times, logging different items. Now, looking at my appender, down here in the root, I've got two file appenders. The first one is the file roller, right? And what that says is, I got this file string, roll all log. What's the max file size of a single log? What's it going to roll? The layout and the debug range, as well as the second appender. The second appender, I'm only going to log debug and info stuff too. So if you want to send debug logs to one file, another log to another file, another type of log to another file, you can do that. So what that did is I produced a bunch of backups. So I got it really small, so it's going to roll every 10K, right? It's real simple. Now, I believe it, for the one that I sent, let me see if I can word this correctly. I sent an info range. So the info range sent one to one file. And all the other ones, because they were not in the debug, fatal, and because they were not in the info was not in this range or something like that. Because the errors were not in this range, it didn't go to this file. Everything else got sent to these rolling files. And we can have a couple of them, but you can kind of see they all got different data. Select. Right, they all got different data because they all got rolled. There is a problem with Windows, but anyways, we'll get to that. So that's cool. Next thing you could do is you can filter strings. So you want to filter out certain messages because they're there. You want them for a debugging purpose, but when you're maybe you don't want them to go to this particular log. It's hard for me to think of an example. I had one where we have a test suite that runs a bunch of PHP command line threads, and we want to force logging. Plus, we want to see that on all these threads, we want to keep track of some process data. But the test harness says anything written to the log is an error. Nothing should be written to the log. So I had to write something to not log this data. So again, simple example. I'm going to write three things to the log. Well, log for this, filter this out, which isn't going to get logged, and log this again. And that's because I'm filtering out PHP rocks. No. And which one is this? This is filter log string. So there you go. So we've already seen that you can have multiple appenders. So you can have multiple appenders. You can route things differently, whatever suits your needs, all via configuration. You want to route to a Mongo log? Boom, here's your appender. You want to route to PDO, any database that has a PDO driver? Boom, here's your appender. And then you can have multiple of these. You can have a super one that appends all of them together. Copy, Okay, done, you're logging to the database. So, yeah, logging is not exactly exciting. I haven't liked this package because it's, again, Apache logging service is a sweet multi-language. I think there's a log for Node, there's a log for JavaScript. There's actually a plugin coming in for Log4php 2.3, which is going to allow you to log to JavaScript Firebug using a Fire PHP, which I think we had to talk on at some point in time, maybe.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's an appender for that. Again, as long as you build this and ship it with it, you can do that. I know Zen also has that too, the Zen log, but the Paralog doesn't. And I'm out of time. Questions?